Very welcome along to the Premier Review Tipperary GA podcast. My name is Thomas Conway. I'm a new contributor, but I'm happy to join the party. And more importantly, with me this evening, it's Tuesday, January 11th. With me is multiple All Ireland winning Tipperary hurler, former Nina County title winning captain Conor O'Donovan. Conor, you're very welcome along.
Thanks very much, Thomas. Thank you very much for having me on board.
Yeah, now, obviously, you have a very accomplished career in the game, but specifically the issue we want to address here tonight, you've raised it in the media in recent years, and that is the rule of the Handpass. Can you just explain to people your arguments, what you think, the issues you think which the Handpass is creating, and the proposed rule change which you're advocating for?
Right. Well, if you like, Thomas, even to go back as far as 2008, I was watching an All Ireland camogie final, junior camogie final on the television. And one of the teams, it was Clare, scored a goal late on in the game. And by way of, the player was standing virtually on the goal line. And to me, it looked like they threw the ball into the net, but it's obviously deemed a hand pass. But to my reckoning at the time, I thought that looked like a throw, and so the goal was allowed. Now, I actually raised it, believe it or not, at that time, a few weeks later, with a senior official in Croke Park. I highlighted it as a possible issue going forward, and asked if maybe the Hurling Development Committee at the time might maybe have a look at it, because I put forward at the time a possible solution to this problem. And there was a bit of toing and froing with this senior official in Croke Park, and he assured me that the Hurling Development Committee would consider my proposal, but look, nothing ever came of it. Roll on a few years then, around 2017, I began to notice that there was a bit more and more what I looked like throwing of the ball going on in terms of, if you like, an illegal hand pass, and wasn't really being penalized by the referees. So as a result of it not being penalized, I felt it was starting to creep into the game more and more. So I had a look at the rules, the technical playing rules of the hand pass, we'll say in the GA's technical hurling rule book. Yeah. And there are two rules, if you like, governing the hand pass that will state that it's a foul. And one is Rule 4.2a, and it states that it's a foul to throw the ball. And Rule 4.2b states it is a foul to hand pass the ball without it being released and struck with a definite striking action of the hand. Okay. And I began to notice that more and more players were actually, they were offloading the ball from the same hand that the ball was in. To me, there wasn't a clear striking action happening. So that was in effect, that was a throw. So it was in contravention of both these rules. And
so in other words, you feel it was damaging the integrity of the game, basically. Is that what you're saying?
It's damaging, first of all, the integrity of the rules of the game, right? Because the rules state it's a foul, basically, to throw the ball. So obviously, somebody along the way, I would imagine in a coaching position, identified, if you like, the potential weakness of these two rules and how they could be exploited to good effect by players and teams accordingly. That, you know, obviously it's quicker way, you know, to offload the ball by way of throwing it than to engage in a clear striking action with the hand.
So are you suggesting teams are willfully exploiting the rule, that they're setting out to throw the ball, so to speak, or make a very subtle motion?
I think the fact that it's happening more and more often, Thomas, and teams are getting away with it, they recognize that they're getting away with it. I think it's fair to say they are doing it deliberately at this stage. Now, if like an example of this really is, I've been speaking with some coaches of underage players over the past while. I've been speaking to a number of coaches, And they've been trying to stress to their players, they're under 6s, they're under 8s, they're under 10s, that it's a foul to throw the ball, right? And the message they're getting back from those players is, well, hold on, sure, all the top players are actually throwing it and getting away with it. All right. So now those coaches are caught in a tricky situation. They're now, if you like, in a conflicted. They are conflicted. Do they encourage their players to throw the ball, or do they stress on them to continue to try and hand pass the ball properly? And if they do that, continue to stress to them to continue to hand pass the ball properly, they're actually putting their players and their teams at a competitive disadvantage.
Okay.
Right. So that's an issue then going forward. We can come back to that shortly. We'll come back to that shortly.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, obviously there are developmental issues there, but I'm just wondering, how prevalent do you feel it is? Do you feel that this is has become a common feature of inter-county hurling, or is it prevalent in club hurling as well?
It is prevalent at inter-county hurling at all levels, Thomas. Is prevalent at club hurling at all levels, and is prevalent, I hear anecdotally, in schools and colleges hurling.
Okay.
Right. So, and unfortunately, it is quite obvious that the rules as they currently are unenforceable by the referees. They're clearly unenforceable. A case in point would be where you have a player in possession of the ball, and you have other players positioned between that player and the referee. So the referee's view of how the player in possession of the ball has offloaded the ball from the hand is obstructed. So how can he tell if that ball was hand passed, we'll say, legally or illegally? So he has to basically make a guess on it. And in that instance, it's like as if he's officiating the game blindfolded. And another example of where the referees are, if you like, unable to see how the ball was offloaded is if
slight disruption
cannot see the ball.
There was a slight disruption in the transmission there, Conor. If you just start making that point again, maybe.
Okay, in example number 2 of how the referee are unable to enforce it is if the player in possession of the ball has his back to the referee. So now the referee's view of the ball in the player's hand is clearly obstructed as well. So he can't tell how the ball has been offloaded by that player, how it has been hand passed. Has it been done legally or illegally? So the referee has to make a guess then, effectively, and sometimes he'll guess it rightly, sometimes he'll guess it wrongly. Now, I do think that is unfair on the referees, but also unfair on the players, that you have that situation where the referee has to guess whether the ball has been hand passed legally or illegally.
Right.
So
yeah,
that's why I started giving this issue some thought, and I tried to figure out, would there be a way to rectify this manner, or this problem, in a manner that was fair and easy to implement. And so I then, if you like, devised or came up with the wording of a rule. Now, so like, upon discussing this issue with different people, some people would have been saying to me, look, the best thing to do is to ban the hand pass altogether.
Okay, but you're not for that.
I think that's a bit extreme. I don't think it's necessary. Okay. I've come up with a proposed solution that will just, if you like, ban one aspect of the hand pass, one aspect of the hand pass options that exist, and that would be, and I'll give you the wording of it, which I presented to Croke Park last August. All right, yeah. The wording of it is that it will state that it is a foul to either hand pass the ball or palm the ball directly from the same hand that is holding the ball. Right.
Okay. So. Now, yeah, and you have in fairness provided visuals, video footage, which is quite helpful. We'll put it up, I hope, with the podcast, just demonstrating the rule which you've outlined. But yeah, no, proceed.
Right. So I'm not then saying to ban the hand pass altogether. What I'm saying is it's simply a foul to either hand pass the ball or palm the ball directly from the same hand that is holding the ball. Now, how players adapt to that rule then after that is up to themselves. All right. Some people seem to of concern or kind of interpreting that I'm saying that you have to hand pass the ball with the other hand. That's not the case. There are other options available to players to do that. But if they want to hand pass the ball from the other hand, as the video clips I forwarded to you have demonstrated, it's quite simple to do. When you're looking at it, if you like engaging in a two-handed hand pass of the ball, it's simply a case of transferring the hurley from the hand that is already holding the hurley over to the other hand. And it's quite simple to do. And that's one skill, hand pass skill that would still remain, along with multiple other hand passing skills. But we're seeing fewer amounts of those these times, Thomas, being executed, because players are by and large now, hand passing the ball from the same hand that the ball is in, and leading to quite often being thrown.
Yeah, and you've obviously invested a lot of thought into it, and they are very interesting proposals. What strikes me, I guess, and I think what a lot of people will be thinking is, is this an inevitable consequence of the tempo of the modern game? The fact that things have just become so fast and furious out there that a change such as this could damage that factor, could slow down the game, if not intentionally. How would you respond to that?
I could say possibly one or two things there, Thomas, right? First of all, as things stand, the way the game is actually being played now, with it being hand passed so much, the tempo of the game has actually slowed down. Okay. Believe it or not, the tempo of the game has actually slowed down. All right.
Because it's a short passing game, essentially. Is that it?
That's it. And the ball is effectively, it's not been struck by the hand. Okay, we'll say prior to the throwing of the ball becoming more and more commonplace, generally when a player got the ball, he looked to strike it with the hurley and move it on straight away. All right. That's generally the way.
Again, slight interruption in the feed, Conor. If I can just stop you for a second, and maybe get you to start again on that point. There was a little bit of interruption in the line.
Okay now?
Yeah, you're okay now. Yeah, you're good to go.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Another consequence of the throwing of the ball, effectively, or if you like, the illegal hand pass, is the increase, I do believe, in the amount of rucks you see in the game these days. All right, and also an increase in the amount of fouls that are what's when the ball is on the ground, just end. Okay, so they stand over the ball and they will roll lift it from a standing position and get the ball into their hand. Now, it's all right then. Okay, so when they go about trying to roll lift it, more players come in and stop the ball being lifted, So more and more players get drawn into the ruck, and then that you could see 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 players there, and they're all rooting for the ball, if you like, trying to roll lift it. And that's a consequence of a player stopping up to try and roll lift the ball to get it into his hand. Okay. All right? Right now, you see, the important thing as far as he's concerned is to get possession of the ball. So if he can't break clear of the ruck, it's okay, because he can still throw the ball out to a teammate in support.
Okay, yeah.
Right? So